Welcome to the First Crack preview. Thursday night footy on Fox doesn't get any bigger. Elimination final, Hawks and Collingwood, 7th v 2nd. It's going to be a huge game from 6:30 as I bring in David King and Leigh Montagna. Welcome, boys.
Hello, lads.
Hi, Ben.
Looking forward to this one. Let's go to the ins and outs, shall we? First of all, they bring back Luke Bruce and CJ, so a couple of nice ins for the Hawks.
It is, yeah. I mean, Luke Bruce, great to see him back in. Is he going to be the sub? That's generally been his role, or do they sub maybe one of the four tools? We'll have to wait and see. It feels like Mitchell will try the four tools again, but great to have Luke Bruce back, and Geath can provide a bit of dash, but obviously a big out with Will Day.
Yep, we're going to go deep on this game in a little moment. But David King, the three changes for Collingwood. So Frampton, Mitchell and Howe comes back in. So the back line's looking pretty solid.
Yeah, Howe's a huge inclusion. There's no doubt about that. Frampton gives them the loose man, or the plus one, if you like, of Darcy Moore. Egan Rome, not as tied to the goal square as what he has been the last few weeks. He's looked vulnerable down there, to be fair. So I like that. And Mitchell, well, you know what? It's a big opportunity for him to just absolutely stamp a spot in the mad month that's coming. So Hill's a bit of an out, the wild card that he is, but I think most predicted the other changes.
Well, something we didn't predict was the Demons sacking Simon Goodwin. David King, your first crack is to look at the Demons who've had a big 48 hours.
Yeah, they have. They've had a huge 48 hours, and we should all say congratulations to Simon Goodwin on what he's achieved with that football club. Flags are hard to win. You know, we're looking at where our teams have been over the last few years. Geez, you'd love to have been on the ride that they've had.
Absolutely.
But I do think, and I've not heard one person say that it's a shared responsibility. I've heard we need a new voice, we need a new leader. But what about the edges? Who else is putting their hand up for getting things wrong over the last 18 to 24 months? Because I want to strip it back a little bit. And for Melbourne fans, go on a bit of a journey, because I think if they're serious, the exiting hasn't stopped there off-field. And there's a lot of blood on a lot of hands, and people are ducking and diving everywhere. I don't necessarily absolve Simon of all issues. He's part of the calamity that's been the last 2 to 3 years. But they've had it all go wrong. And I want to start with recruiting. And I think that when you look at the players that have come in the door in terms of the acquisitions, if you like, there's not a lot there that has enhanced this program. So for me, they won it in 2021. They're still trying to win it with the same guys from 2021 4 years later. Now, that's a tough ask. I don't have any team in the comp that's trying to do that right now. You've got to evolve, you've got to get better, you've got to have talent that can help you do that. Not many players on that list there, with the exception of the elite picks.
3 or 4 are playing.
The rest are so-so. So I say, who else has played a part in this demise? And you've also lost Jackson. You only had 50 games of him, and that was unavoidable. Grundy come and gone, and Alex Neil-Bullen, I think, is a heart and soul guy that's having a big impact on there. So those guys haven't helped the cause either. Now, there's differing reasons, and some you can't avoid. But the off-field's got to help the on. If you haven't got hand in glove with your full footy department, Joey, it's impossible. Yeah,
it is, and that's right. And when you see it like that, their team hasn't really improved like it needs to be, because there were 3 or 4 names on there, some youngsters that are in the team, but otherwise it's basically what they've had.
And you're thinking it's one domino's gone, there's going to be more to follow. And to be fair, King, I was surprised. I mean, it must have been a rolling review for a long time to be able to make a call like that without structuring a review and saying we need to assess this season end. It's like bang.
Yeah, so that's the recruiting side of it. Then there's the coaching. And again, we're not absolving what he's done or where he's been, but it's not just as simple as give him the best talent, you go and win it. Sometimes, just before I leave that, sometimes there's the deals that don't get done that hurt you as well. I mean, Petty for 2 first-rounders, whether it's one or not, Adelaide ended up getting Dan Curtin with that pick.
Yep.
So they traded up, they did a few things, but what you didn't do with Oliver and Petrarca last year, is that now having an impact on this list? So I just think that they've been tardy and they've been errant with their decision-making processes over the last couple of years. Now, he sits, all coaches wear the bullet in the end. But, gee, I feel not sorry for him, because he's had a wonderful opportunity. He's been there a long period of time and he's won a premiership. Never feel sorry for a premiership coach. But if you look at the core 4, which is what I love to look at, so that's with the footy, without the footy, in clearance and in contest post-clearance. So basically the game, if you like. So you go to 2020 and they were 8th, 7th, 4th and 8th, becoming a pretty good side.
Yep.
And we all know they were going to gear towards contest and defence. So the next year, it was no surprise that when it all come together, led by Max Gawn and co, that midfield group, when they got hold of the footy, they were bulletproof in terms of their defensive work, which gave them great looks the other way. Their clearance work was outrageous during that grand final, if just for one game. And their contest work, well, they were just killers. They really were, that midfield. And again, it's the same midfield now. So you go forward 12 months, and this is where it just starts to tip fractionally. And this is where I think the talent hasn't helped correct any of this misfortune. So with the footy, these are the problems starting to come. No connection, no dominant target, no one that really grabbed the game in the forward half, and he couldn't coach his way through this. So 8-2-1-1. So still pretty healthy with the other three facets. Go forward another 12 months. Now we're sliding down to 10th. We're almost in free fall with. So now you become just the two components they adore. You know, without the footy defensively and then in contest, but there's holes starting to appear everywhere else. And then you go to 24 and to 25, and you can just see it's become a bit of a meandering profile. And in the end, this is what gets the coach. But I think there's an allowance, or there's got to be a tolerance that you've got to have when you look at this profile now, that they haven't had the injection of elite talent to come in real time and help the coach.
Yeah. And Michael, to be fair, I think in 2024, he knew that they needed to address their ball movement, that it was slidey, because they went and got Caleb Windsor. And I remember that pre-season, they started playing the uncontested mark game and they were trying, but then other areas were getting affected. We saw what they've done in the draft period, getting Xavier Lindsay and Langford. So they knew they needed skill and talent.
But they're kids, aren't they?
They are kids, that's right. But he was transitioning, was my point. And I suppose the other point, when I think about Simon Goodwin, that frustrates me is this whole, well, their efficiency going inside 50 or their ball movement was all on Simon Goodwin. When really, when you look at the facts, is that his 4 best players are the 4 worst kicks in the team. In fact, they're 4 of the worst kicks in the competition. When you talk about Gawn, Oliver, Petrarca and Viney, it makes it very hard to connect going inside 50 when these guys are the 4 worst kicks in the team. So he did try, but I think, to your point, he just didn't have enough talent to be able to continue to transition his ball movement. We saw that a bit more of responsibility on Jake Bowie, and we spoke about Lindsay and Langford and Windsor playing more of a role. But in the end, he just wasn't able to correct that element of his game because of the personnel that couldn't get the job done with that facet of the offence.
So Kingy, it doesn't buy you much a premiership, does it? No. You win a flag, you're top 4 straight sets, one bad year, next one you're out. I mean, it doesn't buy you a lot, but what needs to change, you think, by the end of the year?
Well, and this is the exercise, you know. I'm sort of saying that this last 18 months has been a failure in fan management. Every time Simon's talked, it's been the same message, and it's got tiresome for the Melbourne supporters. Gary Pert came out and made comments that were just almost laughable. Kate Roffey put herself into a flat spin in an interview with Jared Waitley, which ended her tenure. So they haven't handled that side of the Melbourne fans, well enough to cope. I guess we get to the end of the season calls. What are we thinking needs to happen? And if you're going to be brutal. And I think we just got to say what we feel. I think they've got to look at getting something for Christian Petrarca.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
It's time to turn the page there. I would move on Oliver. I think if he's there, you'll play him, and you're still going to have the same as what you just showed there. You're still going to have that, and I'm not sure he has the status of a leader that he once had, and he's not the player. Now, I know there's a big contract there.
Yeah, that one's easier said than done, isn't it?
But sometimes you can't sacrifice money for culture for money.
Well, Brodie Grundy's a prime example.
Yeah, you've got to take the hard calls, and I'd look at players who are on the selfish side, and that's Bailey Fritsch for me. I think you've got to look now to get operational, get something in the door, and then reset with a new coach. The new coach is another question that I want to ask you. I mean, we all know the names that have been there before: Simpson, Longmire, Buckley, those guys. I want to throw up 2 or 3 freshies. I reckon Sean Grigg, who's up at the Gold Coast at the moment, has had an outstanding apprenticeship. I've seen what he's done with Rowell. I've seen what he's done with Anderson as a midfield coach. I've seen the form that Witts is in. They've become a different product under the coaching of Hardwick and Grigg. Yep. And I think that he'd be outstanding. Spent time under Chris Scott. Daniel Pratt, we heard Simo mention moments ago, and he knows him better than anyone. He's been the assistant for a long period of time. And Craig Jennings is probably my wild card. Bit different, bit lateral, a student of the game. Invested, just doing everything he can to be an AFL senior coach, and has done, in all fairness, since he was about 18 years of age. So he's the American model, if you like, of the full-time coach.
So does that mean you're in the camp, which I probably am, not going for one of the experienced coaches, but going for a new coach? That's what
it
you
for
would do
me.
as well?
One of those three for me.
Yeah, okay. I think other than Hayden Skipworth's a name that's get bandied around. I think Matthew Boyd's coming onto the scene, even Stephen King. I want to see a younger coach that's got modern thoughts, a bit more progressive, and I'd love to see, if you go down that path, getting a Ken Hinkley or John Longmire to come and maybe run the head of football and run the program and have that experience there. That would be a good combination for me if they can pull it off.
I'm with you. I think the untried. I think to get someone in that's got the credentials. I mean, Cam Bruce is another one you've got to throw in. Been at Hawthorn, successful era, gone to Brisbane. They're winning everything at the moment.
But we know the others can do it. Like, we know John Longmire can do it. And we know Adam Simpson.
No, we know that.
If they choose that way and that's right for them, well, so be it. And you've got to get... I think you do have to get some grey hair in there around the edges to help those younger coaches. But I like the modern man. Yeah,
and Kingsley, Mitchell, McRae, they're great sort of, what would you say?
New wave
of coach. That's the way it's going. So there's no doubt. Joey, your first crack, Hawks ball movement, what do you see?
Well, let's get into the game. It's the game of the round, and it's make or break really particularly for Hawthorn. They have to win one of these games either against Collingwood or Brisbane if they want to play finals. The Pies, their top four is still hanging by a thread if they want to make sure they finish there. And I want to look at this game because for the Hawks to beat this Collingwood defence, the best defence in the competition, I think they need to be prepared to be brave with the ball because this year against the top 8 teams, they've had trouble scoring. So we know they've been really competitive. They were great against Adelaide last week without getting the win. We've seen that in a few other games against the top 8 this year, but just haven't quite been able to score enough to be able to knock off the top teams. And when you take a look at their offensive profile, it has been a bit of a concern for them. So the points for against top 8, the efficiency inside 50, and being able to move the ball from the defensive half and score has been a challenge. And they found this out last time they played Collingwood, round 12, earlier in the year. They got comprehensively beaten and they only scored 56 points, Dicko. And I just want to take a look at some vision of what happened on that night because this is when, and King, you raised it early in the year about the Hawks ball movement. Early in the season, mid-year, they sort of lost their dare. Like, this kick is on every day of the week into the corridor. And the Hawks of 2024 would have gone for that and just got the ball moving. But for whatever reason, they were playing straight line footy, which plays into the Collingwood team defence. We've seen it all year long. Collingwood want to keep the ground skinny and they want to play it on one half of the field. Here's a free kick in the back pocket. Just watch the open side of the field. They end up peeling out their Hawthorn. They've got 6 players that they could switch the ball, run and go.
You're gone.
And last year we saw that. Their half forwards would then break and they would challenge the opposition. Instead, for whatever reason in this game, they kept it skinny side. And as I said, they only had 45 entries in this game, only 22 points from the back half, which was their 4th lowest return for the season. So even though Sicily takes the contested mark, you can see as they continue on, they stay skinny side and nothing comes of it. So that's the challenge against Collingwood. And I think we saw last week against Brisbane Lions how you do need to challenge Collingwood defensively and how you need to spread the field and get them out of the pockets that they want to play and really challenge them. And this is just one example of what Brisbane, we know, do the best of any team in their competition. When they win the ball back, how quickly they want to spread the field and make it big and really challenge Collingwood and open up the pockets of space. And they're able to do that. So I want to see this from Hawthorn. I've watched James Sicily now. He's absolutely back in form with his intercept marking and his defensive stuff. But he's been playing pretty safe with ball in hand, and maybe there was a bit of an overcorrection with what was happening earlier in the year. I'd love to see him start going for those kicks again, Dicko.
Yeah.
Pulling the ball into the corridor, taking it out to the open side, because that's the way that they are going to be able to score against these best teams and ultimately try and win a game they need to win.
Yeah, and you're good point on Sicily. He lost his confidence carrying that groin injury, pulled a few kicks and got hammered for it. Yeah. Probably lost the licence in a way. So they've been a bit risk-averse. Love to see him play a bit of Brisbane and get zorked. So
yeah, try and zork.
Assist.
Yeah.
Would you call it assist?
A good zork. Yes, you can call it that if you like.
All right, Red Rooster, crunch time. Kingy, what do you got for us?
Well, no trust, no trophies. If you're not prepared to trust the 2 half-forward flankers to go into the middle and create havoc like we're seeing Grime Myers do, like we're seeing Cozzy Pickett do, Shea Bolton's done it. We've got a whole host of players we could name. Tom Papley. They all get their opportunity in the middle to then create pandemonium. And these guys can do it, but Sam doesn't trust them. He doesn't trust them. He's gone with the 4 tall forwards before he's had a look at these guys at centre bounce. And I look at the numbers, and I just couldn't believe that Moore had only been in 2, 4, 3 and 4 times the last month. Watson's hardly been in there all year, 5, 3 and 2 the last 3 weeks. And I think, how is that the case? Are you really exploring these guys if you're not allowing them to do that? When Moore gets 18 possessions, they're 11 and 6. That's what you want. You want him with ball in hand. You want your best players to have it. Do you realise that Watson, he's only had more than 17 disposals once in 2 years. So you've got to get him involved. You've got to get the ball in his hands. They need to be looking for him at every opportunity. And Joey, you talked about their scoring woes. They've only scored 100 points 4 times. And that's against Essendon, North Melbourne, Richmond and the West Coast. Yep. The bottom 4 in the competition. Yep. These guys have to be headaches for Collingwood on Thursday night. If they're held to 12, 13, 14 touches, their season's over. So explore what you got right now while the season's still live and available. And who knows? Who knows? They might get going. They might get that creative ball used through the corridor. They do different things. So I just want to see them, get going because they haven't really done it in terms of hitting the scoreboard either. So I just wonder whether Sam's sitting at home thinking, OK, I'm releasing the shackles tomorrow. We're going to see the wizard in at centre bounces going crazy.
I'd love to see match motors in there with the Dacos, the speed, the chaos. Like
challenge him the other way.
Challenge me the other way. And while it is crunch time, I know there's been a lot of talk around Dan Houston and 14 disposals on average in the last 7. So I've just coded a few of his touches. So right now, Dan would probably be low on confidence. All he's getting right now is getting thrown the ball and kick-ins. I mean, let's be honest, it's a little bit of tongue-in-cheek, but we're talking about Sicily taking the risky kicks. We're talking about Zorko and all that. His weapon is his leg. Yeah. So, at the moment, after these kicks, he's not really getting involved. So, Dan Houston, over to you tomorrow night to... we've got a Zork, we've got a assist. Yeah. Send a rocket.
Right.
Houston.
I like it.
All right.
I know we're being a little bit cheeky with that they're the only kicks he's getting, which is really not far from the truth. But would you like to see him not take the kick-outs and be the next link in the chain? Trying to get involved 40, 50, 60 from their own goal. I just feel like the game's going on around him at the moment.
Yeah. Well, Jeremy Howe coming back in. Yeah. He takes a lot of the kick-outs sometimes. So release Howe. Houston, up the ground a little bit.
Like it.
That should be good. Let's check in with our man, Bernie Vince from PointsBet with his first crack for the weekend.
Thanks, guys. My first crack is Jezza to outscore Essendon. Now sitting on 75 total goals for the season. Just 25 to go for that elusive ton. Now, I did my numbers on this one, and Essendon over the past 4 weeks have averaged just 49 total points. Their highest in those 4 weeks is just 56. On the other hand, Jezza over the past 2 weeks has averaged 52 himself, and he did outscore North Melbourne just 2 weeks ago, 67 to 49. So it can be done. You can find that market under the game, Geelong v Essendon on the weekend. Plus, you can have a look on the PointsBet app for a whole heap more odds. Enjoy the footy.
Chances are you're about to lose. For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.
Round 10-22 kicks off Thursday night footy on Fox. The Hawks hosting the Pies, 7th on the ladder, take on 2nd. It's a big game, elimination final, so to speak. The Hawks win, they keep their finals hopes alive and steal side bottom 350 games. What a player, and there's plenty more in the tank, which is scary because
he's a star.
Yeah, and he's been a big part of the Pies and their progress this year. Joey, you're going to have another crack, Cats clearance game.
Well, just having a look at the Cats, there's something that's caught my eye. I love the way that Cats generally do things differently. And this is just something that I've noticed in recent weeks that I just took a little bit more of a deep dive on. So when you think about the Cats, their midfield, it's different to the other midfields. They don't necessarily have the big ball, the number one sort of clearance winner that sets up the play. So their clearance numbers differential, they're 11th in the competition. They're not a strong clearance differential side. They don't have a dominant ruckman. And we know that with Atkins, Smith and Holmes, they do it a bit differently. But what they are very good at, points from clearance differential, they are second best in the competition. So they don't necessarily do it with the first give and get it to the outside and go the pure way that we see Matt Rowell and a few other teams. But what they do is they are the best team in the competition at when the opposition get first possession at stripping them, taking that away from them, and then going from it. So they are number one at stopping the opposition from getting first possession and turning it into a clearance. And it's something that's really effective, that is slightly different. So when we take a look at some of the vision that I noticed down at Geelong on Sunday, is they are able to score off these plays. So right there, first possession, Ollie Wines. But Geelong's ability to strip, fight, win the ball, then gets them on the outside and brings in their strengths, which is Holmes and Smith. That led to the goal. Here again, bang, first possession, Port Adelaide. They bring up numbers, so they like to bring up their half forwards. Kingy Myers comes up around the footy, playing more midfield minutes. Sean Manor comes up, so again, they've got the ruckman, the ability to be able to just do enough to deflect, strip, win the ball back, and then they're off. And all these plays lead to scores. Poor Ollie Wines, and that one was a bit stiff, having to chase Max home. So just something to keep an eye on coming into finals, because it is a weapon, and it is something that they can use to their advantage, that they might not have the personnel of some of the other best midfields in the competition, but they're still highly effective at what they do.
Friday night, Essendon better not walk into the Cat Strip Club.
Yes.
They'll get absolutely smashed down there at GMHBA Stadium.
That's it, they will.
They're unbelievable there. Oh, absolutely. Now, thanks to Workday, Kingy, we're going to take a look at Jordan De Goey.
60 minutes last week,
Yep.
Dicko, and he got around beautifully, didn't he? Went into centre bounce as regularly as he could. And I just wanted to have a look at it. So 22 minutes first quarter, 22 in the second, 16 the third, then out of the game. So smack bang on 60, which was clearly the plan going in, and they stuck firm and rigid to that plan, regardless of the game scores. It was interesting to look at the stints on field. So it was 16 on, then he went in all centre bounces, come off, and then 6. And then 6 and 16 in the second. So they flipped it. So clearly there was a plan. First 16 minutes of the third quarter and done. Looking at the vision and watching him in live in real time, I was watching to see how he was moving physically. I feel like at the start of quarters he was flying. He looked terrific. And then as you would expect, as he got tired, so too did his efforts. Yep. They waned a little bit, lost a little bit of power and a little bit of purity with the ball. These are the weeks that worry me. Second and third week, short turnaround, 5-day break into this. I just wonder whether they'll manage him again. I wonder whether they'll do another 60, 70-minute game and just keep him ticking over, keep him going. I reckon when you see what's happened with Will Day and Hayden Young, I reckon it does send a bit of a scare through the camp. How do we handle this guy? What do we do? Dacos loved having him in the middle. He just knew when to pinch forward, when to charge in. The spacing, so that the know-how's there. The grey matter is there. There's no doubt about that. It's just physically, how do you make sure that come the first week of September that this guy is ready to roll?
Oh, it's a great point, because it comes coming from a long way back when we were playing, but I'd missed 5 through the middle of the year. Jack Russell was always worried about the second and third
Always.
week.
Yeah.
You know, from a hammy, he's coming from Achilles. Like the management, week 1, no worries.
You're
Come
fresh,
up
you're
fresh.
fine, you're going to get through the game, no drama.
Spot on. What's the fatigue? How many day break, Kingy?
It's just, well, they played Saturday.
Saturday.
So 5 days. Yeah.
5-day break.
Yep.
You know, I'm with you. Second week. You know,
Just fingers
it's got to
crossed.
be monitored. But I think they time him and stick to their plan. They stuck to it last week, so
They did.
Against Brisbane.
Yep. I wouldn't surprise if they, well, maybe with Mitchell and Long, whether one of them's the sub, same thing, play to go for 70,
Yep.
75 minutes, sub him out and bring on one of those inside mids to
And
finish
he's
the
got to
game.
sub himself if he's not 100% right. So this is the last 5 weeks of footy. So only one team there you can see undefeated. This is the health ladder. I'm just going to monitor this to within an inch of its life over the last month of footy. Players used, always a good guide. The healthiest team wins it every year. There's no doubt about that. Played all games. So look at Geelong. Really, there's only been 3 positions up for grabs the last few weeks. And really, they've only got one guy that's unavailable for selection. That's Henry with concussion. The rest are just off that. Reeds is just off. But I think they're big gaps. I really do. Everyone's talking about Geelong having a soft run into the finals. They may finish top 2. With a healthy list,
yeah.
It doesn't matter who you've played. It's what you're ready to play or play against that counts. So there's a lot of numbers up there. I understand that, but this is going to be a factor late in the year, Joey. Who you're getting back, who you lose. So I'm looking at clubs and how they manage players. That's why we're having the De Goey discussion. So let's look for this in the next couple of weeks.
It's a tough one too, isn't it? When it's really tight with the last 3 games, but you're managing your players till September, and some will miss.
So do you take the risk on Young? Do you take the risk on Pearce? They're the sort of decisions that mass committees are going to have to get right.
Yep. No, spot on, Kingy. Good work, Joey. Tomorrow night, you boys will be at the MCG. It's going to be beauty.
wait.
So Hawks and Collingwood all kicks off 6:30 on Fox Footy.